As I read it, I'm amazed how he has captured the entire story without missing anything of importance. With a wide grin, I say, "You got everything except for one main point." With a perplexed look, he asks, "What's that?" With humor, I say, So here I was in Brazil, first night of the Congress, standing around at the opening dinner. A mutual business associate introduces us. I did not know who he was or what his business was at the time, and I believe he did not know what I did nor who I was either. He graciously asked if I would sit with him and his family at their table on opening night. I learned that he runs a TV jewelry show. During dinner, we talked small talk during this time. Since he's with his wife, his children, and his father, they get up to leave earlier than most, and we say goodnight. After they have left, I'm sitting there alone and happen to look down and notice a ring on the floor. I pick it up and figure it was one of his family members' pieces of jewelry. I put it in my pocket and figure I'll see him during the Congress and ask if it's his to return. A day or so later during the conference, I see him and ask him if this is his ring. This is where the smallest act can have the greatest impact. It turns out that it was his, and the very fact I returned it to him had a major impact on him. That this person whom he did not really know would make an effort to return a ring that was found, that was his. At the time, I did not think this was such a big deal. For me, it was just another ring, and that I should find the owner and return it. For me, it all started when we were on a mine tour. At the first mine in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, I felt we connected. My nephew, Thomas, was helping me with my social media program that I was just beginning to start up. He gave me this small video camera and asked me to do some filming of the tour. I was down in the Amethyst Geode mine, off in a corner doing a selfie and talking about the geology, mineralogy, and gemology. The next thing I realize is that there is a small crowd standing around listening to me describe the science of the formation of the amethyst in this cave of rock. My friend with his son were also drawn in the cave, but they were there doing their thing with a major production camera for the documentaries they make for their TV shows. Next thing I know, he asked me if I would be open to having him interview me about the geology of the Amethyst mine. For me, I'm always looking to share my passion and did not hesitate in the opportunity. This is where, for me, I felt we bonded. Going from mine to mine by bus, there were usually several hours of travel time. He gets up in front of the bus and walks back to ask if he could interview me for a book on gemstones he's writing for his customers. He wants to include a chapter of a lapidary, and by this time he had learned of my achievements and wanted to include me in his book. So for about the next half hour, as I tell my story of how I got into its cutting in the first place and what some of my achievements were, he is listening intensely, but not taking any notes, which I find perplexing. Once I finish, he gets up and walks back to the front of the bus. After about an hour or so, he walks back to me in the back of the bus and gives me his iPad and asks me to read what he's written about me. He asked me to be sure he got the story right. As I read it, I'm amazed how he has captured the entire story without missing anything of importance. With a wide grin, I say, "You got everything except for one main point." With a perplexed look, he asks, "What's that?" With humor, I say, "I spell my name with 2 N's, not 1. Otherwise, without taking a single note while I'm sharing my story, I'm amazed how he captures my story with depth and detail. I'm thinking to myself, this guy is brilliant. This was the beginning. As the journey continues, he then proposes that I should come visit him in his country and bring some of my couture pieces to go live on air to introduce his customers to my work and who I am as a gem artist. Then, after we've introduced my work and my story to his customers, I should go to Jaipur and work with one of his main vendors and try to produce my cut in their factory so he can do a line of jewelry for the show. He says there is only one of his vendors that he can think of that he thinks can do this level of cutting. With absolute astonishment, I tell him I know that guy. 3 years earlier, a mutual friend, Yanni Malas, world-renowned gem explorer, introduced me to him through a phone call, believing that him and I should work together. When he and I were first introduced by Yanni Malas 3 years earlier, the timing was not right. His father had just passed away, and it was just not the right time for him and I to connect. Though I did not know him, he had known me from his days at the GIA as a student when I would come to the campus and give a talk to the students about gem art. He was one of those in the sea of eyes I would look out into as I shared my gem art and inspiration. I later discovered that he had in his mind a dream that someday he and I would work together. All things are full circle, and here we were through our mutual friend to be connected now and working with one another in his factory, producing my gem cuts and jewelry design.